Namaskar. Welcome learners, students of ethics course, ethics theories and applications, and viewers. Welcome to this session. Namaskar. Today I am going to speak for the next few minutes on Buddhist ethics. My face is already familiar with most of you, those who have attended the first few presentations, video lectures. But for those who missed out on my last three presentations, let me introduce myself very briefly. I am Nandini Sinha Kapur, a professor with the School of Interdisciplinary and Transdisciplinary Study. We are from our school running this SwayamPrabha course, Ethics, Theories and Applications. Let us look at the objectives. This unit tries to make the students acquainted with the basic philosophical position of Buddhism in general. It enables them also to make comparative studies and answer the criticism raised by rival systems as they expose the basic tenets of the system under survey. In this unit, we will give the historical setting of Buddha, his teachings, its metaphysical presuppositions, and its far-reaching implications. Let us introduce the period of Mahatma Buddha to you all. In the history of the world, 8th century BC, before Christ, to 1st century AD, is known as the axial era, a period of great spiritual quest where we get almost all lasting answers to life's perennial questions. India gave her contribution to the genuine thoughts of axial era in the form of Upanishadic inquiry, religions of Jainism and Buddhism, and all other systems of thought. We generally divide them as orthodox and heterodox contributions. Buddha is one finds such product of this era as a new pathfinder. From him comes a religio-philosophical system. Buddha was a very sensitive man. The story of four sights that made him a wanderer, old man, looking at disease, looking at dead body, and looking at a sannyasi or a recluse, bears witness to this. We also see these sights, but they are like a speck of dust fallen on hand. In the case of Buddha, they were like speck of dust fallen on eye, which is very sensitive and could not rest at ease until a solution was reached. They worked like immediate catalysts that caused an awareness of the basic realities of life. What do these four sights symbolize? The first three, old man, diseased man, and dead body, speak about the common plight of human beings. This brings Buddha to the first noble truth, Sarvam Dukkham. Recluse or state of being a renouncer was the way of the age for dedicating oneself for full-time enquiry. Thus, Buddha leaves his palace and throne and begins his search for the reasons and remedies for the plight of man. Buddha, due to his sensitivity, looked into solutions that were available at his time. After taking the life of a sannyasi or a wanderer, he visited many learned and rigorous practicing ascetics. But he wasn't satisfied fully with any one of them. After 6 years of search, he came to his own discipline, which he called middle path and dharma. Middle way for him is the rejection of extremes, be it rejection of extreme austerity or extreme indulgence in worldly pleasures in his practical life, or rejection of eternalism of Upanishads, that there is one unchanging permanent principle, or nihilism of Charbak, that there is no permanent unchanging principle, life ends with physical death. Thus, for his teachings, the philosophical foundation becomes a new position that he reached through his enlightenment. The middle way or the middle path is the theory of dependent origination, that everything is conditional, momentary, and without essence. When one forgets this and considers something as unconditional, eternal, and with essence, then suffering begins. This was a radical finding which begins with basic position, which is opposite to the one that was accepted at that time. He taught orally for 45 years, and his teaching fell on the ears of people from various cultures and traditions. So from his part, he must have adapted himself to their culture, pariyaya, and from the hearer's part, they got only according to their capacity of reception, adhikari bheda. He taught in the language of the ordinary people, mainly Pali. However, the philosophical language was Sanskrit. In all these languages, the disciples of Buddha later recorded his words. Buddha was a teacher who taught, be light unto thyself. Atta deepa bhava. It means do not take anything true without your rational scrutiny. He also repudiated human authority as the final word in his society of monks, Sangha, and taught, let the dharma be your guide, no human authority. All this caused a lot of practical disciplinary problems as so many teachings came up as Buddha's teachings. Thus, the need for a canon came up, and 30 years after Buddha's death, that is Mahaparinirvana, the first Buddhist council was conducted. Within a century, in the next council, strong disagreement between traditionalists, Theravadins, progressivists, Mahasanghikas came up. Human emotional imbalance in the form of putting down and condemning the other as low and hina or vile happened in the course of time. These all contributed to the growth of sects and subsects and many schools and many canons. Today we have Pali canon, Chinese canon, Tibetan canon and Sanskrit canon with their own special emphasis. To the question, which among this is really Buddha's teaching, Buddha Vachana, nobody dared to negate the other canon, rather emphasized their own among others. All these are Buddha Vachanas, but this is the teaching, is the trend of the Buddhist sects. So each one will present Buddha's teaching from his angle. This does not mean that they all disagree in everything. In some basic teachings, they all agree. They are the practical teachings of Buddha, the Four Noble Truths, such as no soul, also no soul theory, conditioned origination, that is dependent origination theory, and the law of impermanence. To these basics, each sect adds its own special emphasis as Buddha Vachana. We don't get into special emphasis of sects in this unit, but we only expose those teachings that normally we all agree as real Buddha's teaching. Four Noble Truths. Everyone who accepts Buddha agrees on one thing, that his basic teaching is Four Noble Truths. Chatvari Arya Satyani. They are Sarvam Dukkham, Dukkha Samudaya, Dukkha Nirodha, Dukkha Nirodha Marga. This is actually ethico-religious teaching. This is exposed in the first discourse, Dhamma Chakra Pavattana Sutta, or if you want to pronounce it in Sanskrit, Dharma Chakra Pravartana Sutra. All agree that Buddha was against hair-splitting metaphysical speculations that are useless from the perspective of life's goal. Buddha took up the plight of humans. He named it dukkham, suffering, searched the cause of it, and presented remedies like a doctor who diagnoses disease and prescribes medicine for cure. The goal is religious, as life without suffering is a stage beyond this present life situation. And the means are purely ethical and meditational. Only differences in this matter between him and other religious thinkers was rejection of metaphysical speculations, be it on God or soul or the beginning and end of life, and so on. According to Buddha, the suffering is caused by ignorance, and this ignorance is about real nature of reality, which is anatma, anitya, and dukkha. This ignorance causes attachment, craving, and all its evil effects. The goal for us is removal of this ignorance by removing attachment and craving. This is termed as nirvana, and the means for this is pragya, awareness, Shila, moral precepts, and Samadhi, meditation. They are elaborated further into noble eightfold path. There is no word in Buddhist languages, such as whether it's in Sanskrit, Pali, or Tibetan, that exactly corresponds to the English word ethics. The term most commonly translated as ethics is Sanskrit Shila, Pali it is Shila, in Tibetan Shula Krimsha. But this word actually means something more like moral discipline. Someone has Shila when, having made a commitment to follow a certain set of moral rules, he or she is actually disposed to follow those rules. The Sanskrit term, for instance, kushala and shubha, are used in a strongly evaluative way, and often translated as good, though in some contexts there are other possible translations, skillful for kushala, beautiful for shubha. Buddhist texts talk about what we should do and hold up models of spectacular altruism for our admiration and emulation. And Buddhism attaches considerable importance to systems of rules that codify moral discipline. Sarvam Dukkham, everything is suffering. Indian philosophy in general begins at a realization of this human predicament. The unfortunate existential situation in which one finds oneself, that his life is brutish and short, it begets frustration, unhappiness, and pain. This is a pessimistic way of looking at life. Buddha also shares in it. According to him, birth is suffering, old age is suffering, sickness is suffering, death is suffering. To be united with what is unpleasant is suffering. If one wants something and does not get it, that also is suffering. In brief, the life as we see it is suffering. It is the aggregate of five skandhas with thirst for existence and clinging. If we ask the question why it is suffering, we must say it is suffering because it is impermanent. It is temporary. Though this initial pessimism is there in Buddha, it doesn't make him inactive. Rather, it energizes him to search for answers. One general answer was already there in the form of law of karma, that is the source of this unfortunate situation is of our own making, own doing. It is our own deeds that breed karmic residue. If we ask the question, what was Buddha's enlightenment? We must say it was the realization Sarvam Dukkham. Ordinary man at one time speaks of life as well of tears. In the next moment strives for pleasure and clings to some soul. Even when he fails to attain pleasure, he is under the impulse, the thirst for pleasure and appeasing of soul. For the ordinary man, things are not consistently impermanent. The distinction of Buddha is that for him, even those strivings for pleasure are painful and attainment of the so called pleasures too. Clinging to a permanent soul is the root delusion. Dukkha Samudaya, cause of suffering. Second noble truth says our suffering has a cause. That which is caused can come to an end if the causal condition is removed. Something that is uncaused cannot be removed. This is the foundation of Buddha's rejection of Upanishadic uncaused and permanent soul. Thus, the second noble truth is the message of hope that comes from Buddha. Since bondage is caused, there is possibility of removing it by controlling causes and eventually eliminating them. What is it that causes suffering? In the first sermon at Banaras or Varanasi, in Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta as it is known as, Buddha said, it is the thirst or Trishna that leads to rebirth, which is accompanied by delight and passion. Later, this thirst is further elaborated as aroused by sense objects, Kama Trishna, and it is directed towards one's worldly existence, Bhava Trishna. The second type of Trishna arises when one takes worldly personality, five skandhas, as the self, Atma, and clings to it. This is the ignorance that entangles one in the cycle of existence. When all these join together as a cause and effect chain, that is dependent origination thesis, Pratitya Samutapada, the famous theory of 12 spokes of Bhavachakra of Buddhism originated. Let us now look at the 12-membered chain of cause and effect. First, ignorance, avidya, then impression, samaskara, followed by initial consciousness in the embryo, vijnana, mind-body embryonic organism, nama-rupa, the six fields, namely then the five senses and mind together with their objects. Then contact between the senses and the objects, sparsha, sense experience, vedana, strong desire, trishna, clinging to existence, will to be born, bhava, rebirth, jati, pain, old age, and death. In the general presentation of cause of suffering in the 12-member chain of cause and effects, the root cause of entanglement in causal chain is ignorance, which is the absence of liberating cognition. The Four Noble Truths. In such a person, craving for worldly objects and worldly personality come into being, Kama Trishna and Bhava Trishna. The impressions that are like a subtle body is the bearer of rebirth. It enters into a new womb after death, driven by these impressions. Now let's come to Dukkha Nirodha, cessation of suffering. It is the third noble truth about cessation of suffering, Nirvana. Negatively, if we speak of Nirvana, it is cessation of all suffering, annihilation of all that binds, complete vanishing of thirst, abandoning of all afflictions, upadhi. Positively, it is attainment of freedom. The question is freedom from what and freedom to what? Nirvana is a freedom from all the three types of act that bind mental, vocal, and physical. This can happen only when one's actions do not create craving, raga, aversion, dvesa, and delusion, moha. Again, nirvana is a freedom to a life with full of goodwill, metta, compassion, karuna, sympathetic appreciation, mudita, and equanimity, upekka. Its outward expressions include politeness, good manners, cleanliness of habits, and the like. Buddha himself stands as a beacon with his personality. Buddha, when he started teaching, was a man of harmonious, self-contained personality with great magnetism. This comes from self-confidence resulting from his enlightenment, the attainment of the right view. This is liberation. He had a contemplative temperament and kind-heartedness towards all mankind, even towards one who came to kill him. The majesty of his appearance and his courtesy towards people, even of lower status, and his noble manners converted many, even the dacoit Angulimala, and impressed even those who rejected his teachings. Now let's come to Dukkha Nirodha Marga, path of cessation of suffering. The fourth noble truth is about path to liberation. This is the path that Buddha followed and attained enlightenment. So anyone who wishes to follow Buddha and attain enlightenment can follow this and attain enlightenment. In fact, it is path to moral perfection through practice of morality or virtues. Morality in Buddhism has a deeper understanding than popular understanding. Normally, we judge rightness or wrongness on the basis of actions externally seen, but in Buddhism, emphasis is on what is going on in the mind. Again, popularly, morality means following moral precepts, that is, emphasis on actions performed. In Buddhism, emphasis is on being moral than following precepts. Being moral emphasis total personality. It is not one action that decides morality, but the moral culture of the person. Fourth noble truth is generally described as the Noble Eightfold Path or the middle path. Some books divide them into three groups. They are wisdom, pragya, morality, shila, and meditation, samadhi. Among the eight first, two are classified in the group of wisdom, Next 3 are in the group of morality, and the last 3 are in the group of meditation. They are as follows: right view, samyak drishti; right conception, samyak sankalpa; right speech, samyak vak; right conduct, samyak karmanta; right livelihood, samyak ajiva; right effort, samyak vyayama; right mindfulness, samyak smriti; right concentration, samyak samadhi. Let's come to right view or Samyak Drishti. Right view here refers to comprehensive understanding. Its opposite, wrong view, then refers to one-sided or excessively bent to one extreme, be it about self or about world, and that is the root cause of suffering. Thus, if we want to be free from suffering, we must come out of our one-sidedness. Let's come to right conception, Samayak Sankalpa. Right conception is a decision in the mind of what is to be practically followed. As far as practice is concerned, the right view remains impractical, for it doesn't become part of the active mind. It is the duty of the right conception to make mind active that way. Right speech, Samayak Vaka. When right view and right conception start to regulate life, they bring qualitative change in the way of speaking, behavior, and lifestyle. Right speech is that speech which does not consist of lies, gossip, abuse, and idle talk. This rule asks for restraint of speech and practice of virtues with one's speech. Right conduct, Samaya Karmanta. This noble truth asks the practitioner, sadhaka, to abstain from wrong actions. This contains the famous Panchashila, the 5 vows for desisting from killing, stealing, sensuality, lying, and intoxication. Killing refers to destruction of life of any being. He who takes away life or instigates another to do so is guilty of this crime. The vows of individual liberation, which apply to monks and nuns, accepting these commitments is a crucial part of what defines someone as a Buddhist layperson or as a Buddhist monastic. The 5 precepts are quite similar to the basic list of prohibitions in other great world religions. Those who take them make a commitment to refrain from killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, and drunkenness. The vows of individual liberation are stricter, ruling out all forms of sexual activity and laying down detailed regulations for monastic etiquette and deportment. Following the 5 precepts is said to lead to rebirth as human and prevent rebirth in one of the lower realms of suffering. This form of lower discipline helps people develop self-respect so that they are confident in appearing and in gathering. It prevents many forms of trouble and suffering that harmful actions produce for both the agent and others. Meanwhile, the vows of individual liberation help the monastic community function in a way that serves the spiritual development of monks and nuns. They also create a foundation of meditation practice that leads towards freedom. Right livelihood, Samyak Ajiva, right livelihood refers to earning one's everyday living by honest means. Right effort, Samyak Vyayama, right effort refers to mind control. Mind is the root where all types of tendencies reside, whether they are good or wicked passions. Sometimes undesirable ideas may haunt the mind, and hence mind control is needed. Sins of the mind are covetousness, malice, and skepticism. They need to be controlled. Right mindfuls or Samyak Smriti. This rule further stressed constant vigilance, constantly keeping in mind the good things he has already learned. He should constantly remember and contemplate body as body, sensation as sensation, mind as mind, mental state as mental state, and contemplate on the frail, loathsome, and perishable nature of things. These help us remain free from attachment and grief. Right concentration, that is Samayak Samadhi. Buddhism speaks of 4 stages of concentration. The first stage is dhyana or meditation on 4 noble truths. Second stage of concentration, there is no reasoning and investigation but an unaffected contemplation. Here still the practitioner enjoys an experience of joy, peace, and internal tranquility. At the third stage, one detaches himself even from joy of concentration. Attitude of indifference increases, still conscious of the ease and equanimity. At the last stage, one puts away even the ease and equanimity and all senses of joy and happiness that he earlier had. This is a perfect stage of equanimity, indifference, and self-possession. Here he attains the desired goal of nirvana, the right view in its perfection. Most lineages of Buddhism value and practice the four divine abidings. In Pali, it's Brahma Vihara, also known as four immeasurables. These are loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. The content of loving kindness is a wish for others to be happy. Loving kindness, which can be a very enjoyable state, is a kind of opening to others and to the reality of their lives. The content of compassion is a wish for others to be free from suffering. The quality makes it possible to be fully aware and present in the face of others' suffering. Joy is traditionally understood as the ability to rejoice in the happiness and good qualities of others. To operate in someone, joy requires the absence of envy, jealousy, and self-hatred. Equanimity makes it possible to see situations as they are without preference or prejudice. It makes it possible to extend the other three divine abidings equally to all beings. Most emotions that ordinary people experience are overcome or transformed by the path someone who was fully awake would not abide in. But the four divine abidings are emotion in which awake people rest, from which they act. Now finally we have come to an end of this unit. We'll take a minute to sum up. Let us sum up. Buddhism as we see today is a big forest with such a lot of variety of trees in it. Though the schools and sects keep up their uniqueness, they all claim that they give the master's teachings. Modern times, when study of Buddhism was rejuvenated in Europe, a fresh scientific inquiry into what is letter and what is the core of Buddhist teaching was taken up. All unanimously agree on the so-called Four Noble Truths, Chatura Arya Satyani, as Buddha's own words, and contains a summary of his teaching and gives theoretical framework of philosophy for Buddhists everywhere. Among these truths, the first, the truth of suffering, is the basis of Buddhist ontology. The second, the truth of the origin of suffering, is the basis of Buddhist psychology or the ontology of the mental. The third, the truth of the cessation of suffering, is the basis of Buddhism as a religion. The fourth, the truth of the path leading to cessation of suffering, that is dukkha nirodha marga, is the basic of Buddhism as a moral and meditational practice. All the later developments in any of these fields have this fundamental heritage, the vision of Lord Buddha. Thank you very much, listeners, viewers, and students of MOOC course. Wish you all the best for reading through Buddhist ethics. Namaskar.